Hello, my name's Jessica O'Reilly. I'm an instructor of English at Lambton College in Sarnia, Ontario, and I've created this video to help my students and others set up their papers in APA style formatting. So the first thing you have to do is open up a new document in Microsoft Word. Note that I'm using the 2010 version of Word, and so if you're using an older program, the instructions may differ slightly, but you should still be able to use this tutorial to help you. The very first thing I do is double-click at the very top of the page so that I enter the header editing screen. Using the left button of your mouse, click on Different First Page. Click on the Home tab and change your font style to Times New Roman 12. Now, if Times doesn't show up in your recently used fonts, simply scroll down until you get to T and you see Times New Roman. The reason why we have to do this is because Word's default setting is Calibri 11, but we want Times New Roman font style and 12-point font size for all APA style documents. So we'll actually have to change this several times before our paper's set up. The very first thing you type is capital R for running, and then lowercase h for head. Insert a colon, and then leave one space between the colon, and then type the title of your paper, all in capitals. Use your instructor's guidelines to help you come up with the title of your specific document. Hit Tab twice, and then simply type the number 1. Once you've done that, double-click to get out of the header editing screen. Above Paragraph, select this icon. APA wants your entire document to be double-spaced, and so if you select 2.0, that will do just that. Hit Enter 5 times, and then center your cursor. Once again, you're going to type the title of your paper, but this time using just normal capitalization rules for titles, which typically indicates that the first letter of each word of the title is capitalized, unless the word is 3 characters long or shorter. Now notice that once again, Calibri 11 has popped up as our default font. So once more, we need to change it back to Times New Roman 12. Hit Enter and type in your name. You can use just your first initial or type your full name. Hit Enter once again and then type in the name of your academic institution. Note that some instructors prefer the assignment due date to appear on the third line of the title page, so always follow their guidelines. Once you're there, hit Enter until your cursor moves to page 2 of the document. Once your cursor's on page 2, click on Insert, Page Number, Top of Page, and select the third option, Plain Number 3. Notice that a 2 appears. All in capitals, type the title of your paper once again. With the cursor in between the last character of the title and the number 2, hit Tab twice. That moves the title to the left and leaves the page number on the right. Highlight the entire header, and once again, change it back to Times New Roman 12. Double-click below the header to get out of the editing screen, and now your header is set up according to APA style specifications. Notice that running head only appears on the title page. Depending on the type of paper that you're writing, you may be required to include an abstract or a summary page. Again, always pay attention to your instructor's guidelines. If you are to include a summary or abstract, you simply type abstract centered and in bold at the top of page 2. Hitting Enter, moving the cursor back to left and taking off that bold justification, you would begin the summary or abstract section. Notice that summaries are left justified throughout. So whereas typically you would indent the first sentence of a paragraph, summaries are an exception to this rule. Now what I'm showing you right now is a document that I created as a student of Western Ontario. But just like you, my paper had to be an APA, and so I've got running head and the header, I've got my title in typical title capitalization, my name, this time I decided to use my full name, my affiliation. Abstract appears centered and in bold on the first line of page 2, and then the entire abstract is left justified. Okay? Turning back to our document, once you've come up with your abstract, hit enter so that your cursor moves on to page 3. Abstracts should appear alone on page 2. Notice that page 3 header turned up all by itself. It will automatically create itself as your paper gets longer. Center your cursor and type the title of your paper for the last time. Notice again that I'm using typical capitalization rules. It's not completely capitalized, just the first letters of major words. If your instructor requires you to include section headings or different sections, then you would do so by titling your section centered and in bold. Now rather than section 1, you would give me something topically related to the paper itself. So for example, I might type background information. Or more likely, I would have an introduction first and foremost. Not all papers require section headings, however, so again, pay attention to what your instructor tells you to do. Now at this point, if I look back at my document, you're simply needing to type, remembering to indent each new paragraph as it comes up. Now notice that there are no extra spaces in between the last sentence of the previous paragraph and the new sentence of the next paragraph. The only thing indicating a new paragraph has begun is that indentation. The last thing I'll show you is the references page. References stand alone on their own page, so depending on how long your document is, you'll have a references page that appears last. The title is centered, but it is not in bold or underlined or italicized. It simply reads references. If you only have one reference, you can leave the title as reference. I'll copy and paste my references out of this document into our new one so I can show you what I did to format them. Basically, we want the entire references page to be double-spaced, alphabetized based on the first letter or letters of the author's last names. Note that the first author that appears on the article or document that you're referencing should be listed first on the references page. Then all subsequent author names are arranged alphabetically. Also notice that my references contain hanging indents, which means that the first line of the reference is left justified, but all subsequent lines are indented. It's basically opposite to what you typically do in an essay. Sometimes words can give you a bit of a hard time when you're trying to create hanging indents. So if you're not sure how to do it, or if when you hit tab the entire reference moves over like it's doing for me right now, what you need to do is highlight just the one reference that you're trying to indent. Right click with your mouse, select paragraph, and under special for indentation you're going to select hanging. That will bring the second, and if there was a third line, over. And that's essentially it for setting up a basic paper in APA style. To give you one last look at a completed document, I'll scan through my rather lengthy graduate level paper. So again, I've got a title page with the appropriate header, 3 lines of text on the title page. If my paper is to contain an abstract, it stands alone on its own page 2, without any indentation. The third page repeats the title of the paper, but it is not centered, it is not italicized, it is not in bold. And then I simply begin my paper. So obviously this chapter does not contain section headings, but if it did, they would look like. And then of course remembering to indent all subsequent paragraphs. Finally, my paper ends with a references page, references appearing on the first line of the last page of my document, references standing alone on their own page, formatted correctly according to APA. This tutorial doesn't cover that specifically, but remember to alphabetize, double space, and hanging indent all of those references. I hope that this tutorial saved you some headaches and allows you to focus on the quality of your writing rather than on the trials and tribulations that you might encounter when trying to format in Word. Cheers.